Can flamingos fly? Because in this game there's a shitload of flamingos flying.
Yes.
Oh no, it's
Yes, they can fly.
ostriches that can't fly.
Yeah. Did you not know ostriches can fly? They can actually fly. They fly with their beaks. They use their beak and they flap their beak over and over and over again really, really fast. And then they fly to space. And then they land in Elon Musk's Tesla and drives it into the moon. And then they set up a moon base. And then they build a nuclear power plant, and then they build a nuke, and then they nuke Norway. And then we all become fucking mutants. And we all become very angry at the people who let the flamingos escape. So we become like Vikings again, right? But we're mutant Vikings, right? And so we get really angry and start killing everybody, right? And then eventually when we get to Sweden, they join us because they were also Vikings. And then we invade Africa and say, "Oi, give me all your food," but then they don't have any food. So we just kill them instead. And then we go to America and we say, "Oi, you let them escape. You let them nuke us. How dare you?" And then we game end them all, and then we steal all their cheeseburgers, all their McDonald's. And then we bring them to Norway. And then we dig a giant hole in the ground. And then we build a bunker like Minecraft. And then we live in that bunker for the rest of the 1,000 years. But then 1,000 years later, one brave Viking, mutation Viking man, decides, "I'm gonna try and see what's on the surface." And then he goes on the surface and sees just a nuclear war land that's just completely shitty and destroyed. And he becomes very depressed, so he game ends himself. And then so he jumps off the mountain, and but then a worm, just like a regular worm, comes and eats like part of his body, and then that worm becomes a mutant worm because radioactive, right? And then he eats that worm and becomes like a radioactive worm, right?
The fuck are you talking about?
He digs all the way underneath and goes to Canada. He digs to Canada, right?
Yes.
And then he bites someone there. Since it's a radioactive worm, right? And they get bit by it, it makes sense that they would become Worm Man and get the powers of the worm. So there's one Canadian guy, right? He gets the powers of the worm, so he starts eating all the dirt. He eats all the dirt to dig around, and then he goes over to. He finds Russia. And then he sees, he sees, you know, their secret nuclear power plants and how they're planning to like nuke North Korea, right?
Yeah.
So basically, the Worm Man digs, he bites through all the nukes, right? He bites, detonates a nuke in Russia that kills. That also detonates all the other nukes in Russia and causes a massive nuclear that destroys the entire world, except for the flamingos up on the moon. And you know what the flamingos say then? They say, "Wow, now all the people are dead on Earth now."
Yes.
Which means that now we can flap our beaks and go back to Earth and we can rule, right? And so they do that. They go back on Earth, right? All of the flamingos, they all leave the moon because the moon is shitty and small. But Earth is big and full of trees and shit. Because the trees, they survive the nukes for some reason. Don't worry. The trees can survive nukes. Shush, Jimbo. Trees can survive nukes. And basically they're back there, and then they're like they become like they eat the leaves and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But what they didn't know is that some of the Norwegians survived their nuke because they were underground and they had dug their bunker. So the Norwegians are still alive, and the Norwegians they're the Norwegian like mutant Vikings, right?
Yeah.
They're pissed off that they got fucking nuked by the fucking ostriches, right? So did I say flamingos? I meant ostriches. Yeah, so basically, so they go there,
Yes.
and then they sneak into fucking where ostriches from? Africa,
Yeah.
Australia,
Yes.
Africa. Uh, where they sneak into where they're from. They sneak up and kill like half of the ostriches, right?
Okay.
And then they burn them in the ground, and then while the ostriches they're rotting, right? So they become food for the trees. So then the trees they become like very big and stuff, right? But then the ostriches they get very angry, right? The ostriches. They get very the ostriches get angry that you're killing my people. You weren't supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Here we thought we could have Earth to ourselves and the trees, right? So they come back and they kill the last of the mutant Vikings, right?
Yes.
The last of the mutant Vikings, they're now dead, right? And then all the trees
The
that
mutant
got really
Vikings dead.
Shush.
How did they
And all
die?
the ostriches they nuked them. Then the ostriches nuked them. So basically, right?
But I
what
thought the
happened
mutant Vikings were in their bunker, in their Minecraft bunker.
Yeah, but they snuck out to kill the ostriches. But then an ostrich noticed and warned the rest of the ostriches, and then they noticed and then killed the Vikings, right?
Okay.
So these mutant Vikings, they're radioactive, right?
Yes.
But the ostriches, they didn't know that. They just thought they were like in a bunker. They didn't know they were radioactive. So they just buried them in the ground. But you know those trees that grew really big because they got from the ostriches.
Yeah, they're
The trees
immune to
got really big
nukes.
because of ostriches. But now they're also radioactive because of the trees. Not because of the Vikings, you know, and that's very much like the radioactive worm man, you know. Just like if the trees eat the power of a radioactive Viking, it becomes a radioactive Viking, but it's a tree, right?
Okay.
So now the spirit of a lot of those radioactive Vikings are in the trees. So now the trees are sentient Vikings that are looking to kill all the ostriches, right? But the ostriches, they thought, we've eradicated all these fucking Viking people, so they're not even prepared. So they build like a city, right? They build like a city, and then they expand their city. But when they finally get to where the trees are, the trees have grown so large because the ostriches. It's been like a couple of 100 years at this point, right? And the ostriches, they always bury their dead in the ground. So then the trees can eat those, and then they grow even bigger because they've eaten more ostriches, right? So now they're the size of buildings, these fucking Viking trees that have been patient for 200 years, right? And now, when they finally get to the city, the ostriches aren't prepared because they've been like there's been so many generations of ostriches that none of the ostriches actually remember what happened with the Viking things. They just thought, it's always been like this. We've always been just fucking ostriches on Earth. And then the trees, they live forever. They're immune to nukes and shit. So they didn't know this. So they basically now the trees, they get out of the ground, they start walking, you know. They walk into the city and they smash some buildings, you know. They kill a lot of ostriches, right? So now pretty much all the ostriches are dead, except for the ones that live in in the underground bunker in Norway.
Yes, of course.
So those are there because in the underground bunker, the opening to the underground bunker is too small for the Viking trees to get in.
Yes.
Which is ironic because the Vikings are the ones that built that high-tech bunker that.
But the Vikings are dead.
Yeah, but they became the trees. Haven't you been paying attention?
They became
Anyway.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So,
It's very
so the
difficult
Viking
to pay
trees,
attention.
Shush, Jim Bob. Let me tell my story. So now that the Viking trees have gotten their purpose, and now they're not eating dead ostriches anymore because they've already eaten all the ostriches. So now they start shrinking again, right? And then they're getting desperate. So one of the trees that are small enough to get into the bunker, he straps a bunch of dynamite to him, right? And then he goes down the ladder into the bunker, and then it goes in and says, and then everyone dies. All of the ostriches are now dead. That era is done. All the ostriches, fucking dead. They're just poof, get it out of your brain. No more ostriches, right? But now you're left on what are the trees going to eat? Because the trees are shrinking and they're losing energy because the trees, they can't eat other trees, right?
No.
And there's no ostriches to eat. And they get enough water, but because even though the water is radioactive, they're trees, they can survive radioactiveness. But they don't have anything to eat now. So basically what they do is they use their leaves, right? So they flap the trees. They have these arms that are full of leaves. So they flap those arms, and then they go to the moon, right? They go to the moon, and they take a bunch of moon rocks down with them, and they take that back to Earth.
Okay.
They take that back to Earth and use that to grow plants because, in case you didn't know,
Yeah.
Some of the ostriches some of the ostriches on the moon took some seeds with them up
Yes,
there. Don't
of
ask. And so now they use the moon rocks, the pure moon rocks that haven't been removed, and they use that to grow seeds that they can use to eat food. Because I know that might be eating other plants when they're plants, but at least they're not eating other trees, right? So they eat those plants for a couple thousand years. So now they've evolved into like super sentient people. They now have like towns.
What, the trees?
The trees. They now have towns, cities, and currency, and so now they've evolved into like actual people. But then, what happens is this alien spaceship shows up, right? And it basically takes up this massive flamethrower and just kills all of the tree people. So the Viking tree people are now dead, right? They're dead. And then the aliens, they come back on the ground and they say, "Oi, these are my space rocks. What the fuck were you doing with these space rocks? These are mine." And then they take the space rocks, right?
Did the man with the flamethrower come from the space? Yeah.
No,
Was he the one
it's
that
not a
owned
man
the
with a
space
flamethrower.
rocks?
It's a big flamethrower. It's one big flamethrower attached to a big spaceship, right? Basically, it torched the entire Earth.
What?
So
And is the spaceship like self-controlled?
No, there's like a whole alien civilization. There's like 1 billion aliens on that mothership. So basically, they're like, "Oh yeah, we need these space rocks. Fuck off!" And then they burn the entire Earth. Like the Earth is still there, but it's all ash now. It's like completely scorched. And then they fly off. You know, the aliens fly off, and everything on Earth is dead, right? But since the Viking trees were radioactive, they had like the spirit of the Vikings in them.
Yes.
So the Viking ghosts, when the
Because they
trees
were
come out, the
grown by the
Viking ghosts
Vikings.
are now free. Yeah. So the Viking trees, they are now free. No, they're no longer bound to their Viking body, right? So what they do is they go into the bunker. You know the bunker, right? The bunker in Norway.
Yes.
So they go down there into their Minecraft Norway bunker. They assemble out of all those ostrich parts that for some reason haven't rotted in those 2,000 years. Don't ask. It's the magic bunker. Nothing rots in there. So basically, they take those ostrich parts and then they assemble them into one giant ostrich, right? One big ostrich. And then they use that, and then the spirit of all the thing possesses that big ostrich.
Yes.
And then you know how ostriches fly with flapping their beak real fast.
Yeah.
So they enter that ostrich, like they possess the ostrich, and then they fly up into space, and then they start chasing the spaceship. Like the space people are like, "Oh yeah, we now have our moon rocks that we needed. Now we can grow our fucking herbs in peace. Now we can use that for some dinner, if we feel like it. We can cook some nice food. We can eat some nice blabberclab." With that, because that if you don't know what blabberclab is, that's the space food that's really popular with the glob. Yeah, the globs.
Oh, does
They're
the
the space
glob
people that
make it?
invaded Earth. So basically, what happened now is that big ostrich that flaps it chases the spaceship and fucking kills the spaceship. Like smash! It just uses the wing and smashes out of the air, and takes the people, eats
Is this
them
so
all.
because they ate
All
their
the pe-
glubber
all-
globber?
Yeah, all the globs are now dead. They ate the big ostrich ate them all, right? And
Yes.
now the ostrich takes the spaceship that's as big as a planet, by the way. It takes it back into the Earth, no, as big as the moon, not a planet, as big as the moon. Eats the moon, right? It eats the moon.
Yes.
Then replaces the moon with that spaceship, right? And then one tiny part, like one Viking robot, no, one Viking spirit thing.
Okay, what's
goes
this
out of the
Viking
ostrich
spirit's name?
Thorin.
Thorin?
Thorin possesses. Yeah, Thorin goes in, and he possesses a one of the robots that were inside the alien spaceship, right? And he uses that robot to walk around, and then he enters the control. He enters into the control room, right? And then he goes and he looks at the button on the dashboard, right? And it says activate laser, and then it's like, oh yeah, he presses that, and then it asks what kind of laser, and there's fucking quantum laser, there's a fire laser, flamethrower, there's your nan laser, your mother laser, your gay laser, and then there's Thanos laser. And he chooses the quantum laser, and he activates it to shoot at the Earth. And what happens is, now he has to stay in the spaceship in that robot to make sure nothing goes wrong. And then the big ostrich goes onto Earth, right? And since it's a quantum laser, like time now goes backwards at the same speed as normal, right? So time will go backwards, and you know, all this happened in a span of 5,000 years. So 5,000 years later, because he's a robot, so he didn't die. But all the other ostrich Viking people are now, like, all the way back in time to where,
Yes.
before they even existed, right? So now, he's turned. So now the time has turned completely back. So now the Thorin inside the robot must now turn off the thing, turn
Yes.
off the laser, the quantum laser, because time has now been restored. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean Thorin's mission is done yet.
Yes.
Because he has to prevent this catastrophe from happening in the first place, right?
Okay, yeah.
So Thorin, he activates his rocket boosts that he found in a locker on the spaceship. Don't ask. He activates those, and then he flies onto Earth, right? And then he puts on his stealth suit that was also in the spaceship, because it's an alien spaceship. I can say whatever I want, right? He puts on that invisibility cloak, basically. He sneaks into the zoo that had all those ostriches, you know?
Yes.
He sneaks in, he kills them all. So, like, he one by one, he kills every ostrich that exists before they realize they can fly to the moon and do their shit, right?
Yeah.
So now, basically, this is happening in year 2005, right?
Okay.
So now he's killed all the ostriches.
Yes.
All the ostriches on Earth are now dead. So he's done his mission. So he puts on a switch that will make him self-destruct in 5 minutes, and then he digs a hole underground.
Shit.
And then he explodes. So Thorin is now dead. His spirit is now released. He has done his purpose.
I thought he was already a
he-
spirit.
Yeah, but now his spirit is released. He's
Oh,
finished
it's
his
like
unfinished
free. It's like a
business.
genie.
Yeah, because now he's
He's done his job.
Fix the time paradox, because like if he's prevented that catastrophe from happening, you know,
Yeah.
he wouldn't be there to prevent it, so he had to kill his robot body before space exploded.
Yeah.
You know, but now he's fixed that. He's killed all the ostriches before they managed to get the idea of game ending or nuking Norway, right?
Okay.
So this is 2005, because the horrible and evil ostriches are. This is so
Yeah.
sad, Alexa. But what they really don't understand is the hero, Thorin, saved them all. He sacrificed himself to save the entirety of humanity from ostriches. And that is why ostriches cannot be trusted.
Good.
Unless you have a Thorin on your team in Overwatch.
Okay, that was a good story.